The year is 1861. A young nation, barely a century old, finds itself fractured, teetering on the precipice of a cataclysmic conflict. The issue at hand, the agonizing question of slavery, and its place within the fabric of American society. This question, a source of tension since the nation's inception, had finally reached a boiling point. In the heart of Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, stood Fort Sumter, a lonely sentinel symbolizing the Union's fragile grasp on a nation dividing against itself. On April 12, 1861, the Confederate cannons roared, shattering the morning calm and etching their names into the annals of history. Fort Sumter, bombarded for 34 agonizing hours, became the crucible in which the flames of Civil War were ignited. The Confederacy's bold act of defiance sent shockwaves across the nation. For many, the inconceivable had happened. Brother was now pitted against brother in a brutal test of loyalties. In the wake of this unprecedented attack, President Abraham Lincoln issued a call to arms. He summoned 75,000 volunteers to defend the Union, a call that reverberated throughout the North. As the smoke cleared over Fort Sumter, one thing was clear: the fate of the nation hung precariously in the balance. The early days of the Civil War were marked by a naive optimism, a pervasive belief that this conflict would be swift, decisive, and relatively bloodless. Many on both sides envisioned grand parades and glorious charges, their illusions fueled by romantic notions of battlefield valor. However, the First Battle of Bull Run, fought on July 21, 1861 near Manassas Junction, Virginia, shattered these illusions with the brutal force of reality. As Union troops marched south, confident of victory, they encountered a Confederate army equally determined to defend their cause. What ensued was a chaotic clash of inexperienced troops, marked by confusion and miscalculation. The tide turned dramatically when Confederate reinforcements, led by General Thomas Stonewall Jackson, arrived on the field, bolstering the flagging Southern lines. The Union assault faltered, then crumbled, devolving into a panicked retreat back towards Washington, D.C. The Confederate victory at Bull Run sent shockwaves through the North, shattering the illusion of a quick and decisive victory. As the initial shockwaves of Bull Run subsided, both sides began to grapple with the sobering realities of a protracted war. The North, with its superior industrial might and larger population, adopted a multi-pronged strategy known as the Anaconda Plan. This plan aimed to squeeze the life out of the Confederacy through a combination of economic and military pressure. The Anaconda Plan had three key components. First, a strict naval blockade would be imposed along the Confederacy's sprawling coastline, strangling its ability to trade with foreign powers and import essential supplies. Second, Union forces would advance down the Mississippi River, splitting the Confederacy in two and crippling its internal communication and transportation. Finally, the plan called for a massive land invasion aimed at capturing the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia. The Confederacy, aware of its disadvantages, adopted a strategy of attrition. Their goal was to make the war so costly that the North would be forced to sue for peace. This clash of strategies set the stage for a long and bloody conflict. The early years of the Civil War were marked by a series of brutal battles that painted the American landscape red with the blood of young men. Two such battles, Shiloh and the Peninsula Campaign, stand out as grim testaments to the war's escalating ferocity. The Battle of Shiloh, fought in southwestern Tennessee in April 1862, was a two-day bloodbath that shocked the nation with its savagery. Grant's army, camped along the Tennessee River, was caught off guard by a surprise Confederate attack. The fighting raged throughout the first day, a chaotic mix of hand-to-hand combat and artillery barrages. Only the timely arrival of reinforcements and Grant's tenacious leadership prevented a Union rout. The second day of Shiloh saw Grant unleash a furious counterattack, driving back the exhausted Confederates and securing a narrow Union victory. The cost of victory, however, was staggering. Over 23,000 men lay dead or wounded, making Shiloh the bloodiest battle in American history up to that point. Meanwhile, in the east, General George McClellan launched a cautious but ambitious campaign to capture Richmond by advancing up the Virginia Peninsula. Beset by logistical problems and facing a skilled Confederate defender in General Robert E. Lee, McClellan's advance stalled within miles of Richmond. Lee launched a series of daring counterattacks that drove McClellan back and forced him to abandon his campaign. As the war in the East bogged down in a series of bloody stalemates, a new hero emerged in the West: Ulysses S. Grant. Grant, a West Point graduate who had struggled to find his footing in civilian life, blossomed into a brilliant military strategist and a tenacious leader. Grant's early victories at Fort Henry and Fort Donelson in early 1862 gave the Union control of crucial waterways in Tennessee. These victories, achieved with a determined aggression, established Grant as a rising star in the Union Army. Grant's relentless pursuit of victory, even at the cost of heavy casualties, earned him a reputation as a butcher among some. However, Lincoln recognized Grant's strategic brilliance and unwavering determination, famously remarking, "I can't spare this man, he fights." Grant's success in the West provided a much-needed glimmer of hope for the North. The Civil War witnessed a convergence of technological innovation and traditional military tactics, forever altering the face of warfare. New technologies, such as the railroad, the telegraph, and ironclad warships, played a pivotal role in shaping the course of the conflict. The railroad allowed for the rapid movement of troops and supplies over vast distances. The telegraph revolutionized battlefield communication, enabling commanders to relay orders and receive intelligence in near real time. At sea, the emergence of ironclad warships ushered in a new era of naval warfare. The famous clash between the Monitor and the Merrimac in March 1862 marked a turning point in naval history, signaling the end of wooden warships. The Union's naval blockade, a key component of the Anaconda Plan, tightened its grip on the Confederacy, crippling the Confederate war effort, and pushing the Southern economy to the brink of collapse. As the war dragged on, its purpose evolved from a simple preservation of the Union into a profound struggle for human freedom. Abraham Lincoln recognized that the institution of slavery, the very root of the conflict, had to be addressed head-on. On January 1, 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a document that would forever alter the course of American history. The proclamation declared that all slaves held in Confederate territory shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free. This bold proclamation transformed the war from a fight to preserve the Union into a fight to end slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation energized the abolitionist movement in the North and inspired thousands of freed slaves to join the Union Army. The Emancipation Proclamation marked a turning point in the Civil War, transforming it from a struggle for reunification into a crusade for human liberty. The enlistment of African American soldiers into the Union Army added a new layer of complexity and urgency to the conflict. These brave men, fighting for their own freedom and the freedom of their families, infused the Union Army with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. The war's transformation into a fight for freedom had a profound impact on the South as well. The early years of the American Civil War, from the first shots fired at Fort Sumter to the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation, were a time of profound upheaval and transformation. The nation, tested by fire and divided against itself, would never be the same. The war's early battles, marked by their ferocity and staggering casualties, shattered any illusions of a quick and bloodless conflict. The strategies adopted by both sides set the stage for a long and bloody struggle. Key figures such as Lincoln, Grant, and Lee emerged from the crucible of war, their leadership and decisions shaping the course of the conflict and the destiny of the nation. However, the most profound legacy of the early war years was the transformation of the conflict's moral dimension. The early years of the Civil War were just the beginning of a long and arduous journey toward a more perfect union, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal,